welcome to Looking Up. This is a podcast for Christian women. I'm Kathy Pollard, one of your hosts, and with me is Carla Moore, your other host. And it is our prayer every time we get together and chat with each other that we will encourage all of you who are listening in and remind you and us to look up, keep our eyes on heaven, and know that no matter what's going on in this world, everything will be okay as long as we keep our faith in Christ. Carla, may I say, your hair looks fantastic.
Thanks.
You're welcome. What'd you
What
do?
does it look like?
I don't know. Did you get a cut or did you
It's
wave
funny
it different or something?
No, when I left the house, it was misty, rainy. And so as I was walking to the truck, I could feel it literally going. And I was afraid that when I got here, I was going to be big hair. So I can't see myself very well, but I actually let it air dry this morning. So maybe you should do that more often.
Oh, brother, one of those.
Well,
this is what it looks like when I don't fix it.
Just roll out a bit this way. No, this is covering up the troublesome spots.
The headphones are.
I've told you before, it's curly right here, except for this one piece right here that I have to do something with, and it's not cooperating. But anyway, thanks.
Well, that's fantastic. If that's your air dry look, you've got a really nice kind of a spiral wave going on there.
Yeah, well, straight in the back too, so, and frizzy. Well, how are you still feeling about your ditch the dye?
Well, I'm still, since you brought that up, I'm still excited about it. I'm resolved, but I'm already starting to feel a little bit self-conscious because it's now been 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's well beyond when I would want to color it again. And so all I see when I look in the mirror is like my roots growing in and the gray hair is poking out everywhere. And I really just kind of want to just do the whole cold turkey route. As awkward as that's going to be for the next several months, I don't want to do like a root spray or low lights or anything like that. I just kind of want to be done with chemicals, period. So anyway, that's where we are. But also, every time I'm out, I notice other women that are either have already done it or in the process of growing it out. And I so want to go up to them and strike up a conversation. Yeah. I haven't done it yet, but I really want to. Yeah. And I'll say, Neil, look what she's doing it. Look at her. Or I'll say, did you see that lady over there? And he'll say, no.
Yeah, he's not noticing what you're noticing.
Yeah, I said, you have to pay attention. We're doing this together. I need you to pay attention. He said, I'm not going to be looking at women's hair. Nope.
So, well, you kind of are glad for that too.
I guess so.
Well, I still don't think it's going to be all that drastic for you because you've got the blonde. So I think it'll kind of hide in there. But I'm anxiously standing, rooting for you on the sidelines.
Thank you. I don't think it'll be drastic gray. I think it'll be dark. I think it'll be pretty dark as it grows in because now I'm really messing up what in the world did I just do?
It's okay.
Oh, yikes.
Oh boy.
Oh, let me see if I can angle it where you can't see the top of my head. Because my natural hair, I'm pretty sure is sort of a dark brown, medium brown.
Yeah.
So, it looks that bad. You keep laughing.
It's just funny because as soon as you did that, I thought, oh, she's not going to like that.
Yeah. Huh.
Well, anyway. I did ask John, I told him what you're going to do. And I said, so I think I told you this. I said, so what would you think about me just going gray? And he's very funny when he's trying to be, what's the word? When you're just trying to figure out, walk carefully.
Yeah.
Diplomatic. That's the word.
Diplomatic.
He said, well, I love you. I said, yeah.
That's not a good sign right there.
I said, I don't have any agenda here. I'm not gonna be mad either way. I'm just want to know. And he said, I don't want all your friends to be mad at me. And I said, no, I just really want to know. And he said, I like it brown. So it's brown. And some people may think that that's kind of weird that I would leave it the way he wants it instead of maybe what I want, but he grows that beard for me. He says he doesn't like it. I think he does, but I like it. I just like that. It's a little scruff. I just think it's very attractive. So he does that for me and I can do this for him. He's the only one that care what I look like in front of. So
I agree with you 100%. That should be
yeah.
our main objective anyway.
Yeah. But
I think.
I am actively and supportively standing on the sidelines,
I
cheering
know
you
you
on
are. Thank you.
and
Thank
watching.
you. I have to do these little mental games with myself. And because I was looking at the calendar, how long has it been? How come it's not all grown out yet?
Yeah.
And I went back and checked the date. And so then I put in my calendar, March 16th was the last time I colored my hair. So on April 16th, I put 1 month no coloring. And then on May 16th, which we're not even there yet, I put 2 months no coloring. And then I did the same thing for June, July, August, because I thought I've written it in my planner in ink.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to want to go in there and take that out because it'll look messy, you know. So
But you can put a sticker over it.
Hush.
Okay, sorry.
Since I've written it in my planner in ink, I have to follow through with it.
Yeah. My planner is in my notability and you can erase. And I mean, it looks like it's in ink, but it's not.
That's because you're the cool person with all the high tech stuff, and I'm the old school. Give me paper and pen. And
well, you're also the old school that actually does put it pen to paper, and I'm the one that I need to put that in there and I forget. So you're much better than me about planners.
Oh, what have you been up to?
Well, actually, I got to sew this week, and I brought to show you. It doesn't look all that great, but that's my fun day. Just and I think I told you that we switched offices. John's moved his office to the back. And so now I have that. I did tell y'all, yes. So I have it used to be the garage, and then it was a playroom, and then it was John's office, and now it's my office / sewing room. And my idea of just a blissful day, like yours in the kitchen, mine is just sewing. And so I follow this girl on Instagram. I don't know her name, but it's Center Street Quilts. And she had this little, it's kind of like one of those sling bags that everybody wears now. I have resisted that because it's too small for me and I carry big purses. But I saw a neat little pattern that she made. And so that's what I did on Monday. I spent the whole day sewing and I made this little bag. And it's
wow,
fun.
That is cute.
I learned some things about what not to do with this one because anyway, I'll not do that thing where I show you all my mistakes, but I used it's kind of a thicker decor fabric. Mm-hmm. And so when I tried to do the seams, they were too bulky to finish well. So anyway, it's fun and I will use it. I'm not sure it will be a daily bag for me because it's really small and I tend to carry big purses. Mm-hmm. You're more of a smaller purse person. Mm-hmm. And I want to be that. But then John hands me his wallet and his keys and his glasses. And then I'm like, I have to carry a big purse.
Walk softly.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what I did on Monday. I got to sew all day, like literally all day in there. And it was great because I didn't have to clean anything up, off of the table. Usually when I sew, I'm on the dining room table and I have to clear it off for us to eat. And just to have a whole day at home was just the best. Yeah.
When you were saying that, I was just thinking that I often forget that you have that talent, that you can sew, which I'm in awe of. And I think it's because you don't talk about it very much because you don't get to do it very much. Mm-hmm. And that's your ideal day. It's kind of sad that you don't get to have your ideal day very much.
Well, I think I'll get to a little bit more now, and especially because I can spread out and not have to put it up because that's part of the planning,
not
like
as much
if you're in the
hassle.
kitchen. Yeah. If you're in the kitchen and you don't have what you need to do whatever recipe you're wanting to do, then it just takes a lot of planning. It kind of takes the joy out of it if you don't have the whole day to do it. And also, yeah, that was a good day.
Well, it looks legit, like something you'd find in the store, like the real deal.
Yeah, maybe, but anyway, I always hate it when people say, but you can't see this flaw and this flaw. So I'm not going to show you all the flaws, but they're there. But it was fun. And that was the main thing. It was funny too, because I told John I could go to the store and buy one of these things for like $9.99.
Way cheaper.
And way cheaper than going and buying the fabric and the zippers. Mm-hmm. And this was a fun thing. I did go to Goodwill this week because this bag has I don't remember what you call this thing, but this is a D-ring and this is a swivel hook. I think that's what it's called. And when I went to the store to get the stuff, I went to Hobby Lobby, but I couldn't get the pattern to download. And so I wasn't real sure what all I was going to need, but I knew that it had this kind of strap and I would need one of these little slider things. And so I bought one of these and one of these swivel hooks, but I did not get a D-ring. And I'm the type of person too, that I want to finish a project in a day. I can't stand to start something and then have to wait, have to go find the stuff. And we don't have a Hobby Lobby in Dripping Springs or any kind of fabric store. But then I thought, I will go down to the Goodwill and see if there's something on a purse or a belt. Genius. And so I did. I went down and I found it was a kind of some kid's gym bag. It was monogrammed with her name. It had like Caitlin on it or something. But it had all kinds of straps. I cut off like 3 different swivel hooks and D-rings and the slider hook things. And I have like 2 more sets of all of those things if I want to make more. So that's a good thing I got to thinking of all the things you could find at Goodwill that you would, you could find really cool buttons off of shirts that, there's a lot of shirts that have neat pearl, mother of pearl, if you need buttons or hardware off of things. So anyway, that's what I did at Goodwill this week.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah. What's going on in your life?
We are all about the garden right now. We've finally got all the planting done and sowing and different kind of sowing. Yeah. And so now we're watering and staying on top of the weeding and now is the whole checking every day to see if they're coming up and how they're looking. And I just love this time of year. It's May. The weather's perfect. It's gardening growth. I mean, everything about it. I just wish it could be this all year long, but then I probably wouldn't appreciate it as much.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Did you decide to plant anything different than normal?
Just a couple of different varieties, but the same things. Like I got, I'm doing radishes anyway, even though, I mean, Neil did like them in that one salad that Holly Bauman made, but because I found this variety that's called Easter basket radishes, and it's a whole bunch of different kinds.
Oh.
And so, I mean, they're different colors, they're different
on
sizes.
The same plant?
No, just the seeds are from all different types. So some of them are small and bright pink, and some of them are a little bit larger and darker red, and some of them are longer and skinnier, like the French radish, So I love stuff like that. Yeah. And so
like a mystery box.
Yeah, I went ahead and planted that. And we moved our farm stand from the end of the road up to our porch right by the door.
Okay.
We just decided that makes way more sense. We had tried to buy a big cover, like an awning that we weighted down to protect the farm stand down there from the afternoon sun and that kind of thing. But a windstorm came along and ripped that awning up and threw it across the yard and crumpled it up. And so we just moved it up on the porch, and that way it's completely shaded the whole time. I've got my Ring doorbell right there. If anybody needs anything or whatever, and it's much, much easier to stock. So we were driving down to the end of the driveway, bringing everything in at night, going down first thing in the morning, and now I'll just call it like a porch farm stand or porch pickup or
you can have a sign down at the road.
I'll keep a sign down at the road, and we also have one that Janelle painted for us that we're going to put at the end of our street. But the reason I said that is because that's how I'm justifying it now is I'm going to have all these beautiful, colorful radishes, almost like a bouquet of radishes. And I'll be able to sell them. I could tie them up in bundles and put them in the farm stand. And so that's
Could you do something like, I just saw this and think this through, like a salad kit where you had like certain kinds of greens put together in a bag, and then here's the radishes, here's the tomatoes, and then they could just grab that one bag and have a salad ready to fix, or something like that.
That's a cute idea. For our garden, the salad greens and the tomatoes will be at different times. Like the salad greens are front end when it's still a little bit cooler. The tomatoes won't come in until later in the summer, but I could do something similar to that. I love that idea.
Well, I like the convenience of a kit. I'm always drawn to kits, whether it's a sewing kit or a salad kit. I think maybe it's not being drawn to it. I think it's being lazy, not having to put it together myself.
Well, but that's what people are looking for. And if they're stopping by our porch on the way home from work, that'll be great for them to have something like that. I love that idea.
Yeah.
Speaking of gardening, I wanted to share this little plant with you, if you can see it. This is an elderberry plant. So people make elderberry syrup that's supposed to be good for you. And
is that an immunity thing?
Yes. Rita McGuire gave me this because she has them at her place, and she just gave me like what do you call these things? Not a start or a transplant, but anyway.
I don't know. You know me.
Yeah, something. Anyway, she did this for me last year, and I killed it. And she asked about it the other day, how that elderberry turned out, and I was like, "Well."
People know better than to ask me something like that.
So anyway, she was very gracious, and she gave me another one. So she said, maybe let this one get established a little bit more in this pot before trying to transplant it outside. So that's what I'm doing. But this is attempt number 2.
Yeah. Well, you have a green thumb. It'll make it. It'll live. Last year, I know I had that little square herb garden. It was like 14 inches square, but I realized that it was pretty shallow. It was like maybe 5 inches deep, and it needed more root room. And I had put 4 different herbs. So I'd like to get that going again. When we got back from Denver in March, I had left a couple plants. I mean, Kyle didn't stay in our house this time, my nephew. And so he wasn't there to water things, but the mother-in-law tongue was still alive. It was still alive and kicking, whatever that's called. I can't remember.
I'm thinking jokes.
Yeah. Whatever the technical name is, that one was still alive, but the other things were all dead. So we're gonna plant some things again.
As a snake plant?
I think so.
Because I think that's what I got from me. Look.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I have 2.
It's hard to kill those things.
I have 2 of these on my dining room table.
Yours looks very much healthier than mine. But it's still alive. It's just not very healthy. I never know what to trim. You're supposed to like trim things back, and because mine is jam packed with shoots, and I'm figuring I need to trim something because there's no room for roots. Maybe you don't have roots or very many roots. I don't know, but.
Well, one thing I did learn about these particular plants from Shay Elliott, in fact, I'm feeling mine right now, and I can feel dust on my fingers, is that every now and then you need to take a damp cloth and wash those big flat leaves, because that's where they bring in, I guess, what do they take in and give? I always get confused about what plants take. They take in carbon dioxide and give off oxygen, or vice versa. But anyway, when it gets covered with dust, or in your case, maybe outside, sand, dirt, whatever, it makes it harder for them to take that in and stay healthy. And every now and then you just kind of want to give those leaves like a little sponge bath.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's probably not going to happen in my house.
Like a little filter,
I might take it outside and use the
hose it down.
The air sprayer thing. The little canned air. Spray it off. I'm all about quick stuff.
You just use your noggin. You think outside the box.
Well, something like that. I want to show you this little necklace that Bree Mayfield brought me. Can you see it? It's a little bee.
Oh, how cute.
Yeah. She came to the Ladies' Day this past Saturday down in Corpus Christi. I hadn't seen her in I don't know how long. Did I say Mayfield? Her name is Vestal now. Bree Vestal. But she brought her 2 daughters, and it was just so good to see her. And she told me I'm a worker bee and just handed me this necklace right before my lesson. And then it was just the sweetest thing to see her. And Alicia French was there. I have to make sure I'm saying the married names, because these are girls that I had in my cabin at camp years ago and knew them before they were married. But it was so much fun to get to see them and visit with them for a little while. But it was very sweet of her.
How'd it go on Saturday?
It was good. It was good. It's good to see a bunch of ladies. And speaking of hair, Denise Hammett Mark is the preacher there at Weber Road, and she's been growing out her hair, and hers looks really good.
Denise Hammett.
Yeah.
Not that I'll be stalking her or anything.
I'll send you a picture. But she's kind of got that natural salt and pepper, and I can't remember, she told me if she started doing it during COVID or not, but I've heard from a lot of people this week since we were talking about it that they have the COVID hair.
So. Yeah, so have I. Yeah. I was somebody sent me, let me see if I can pull this up. I don't know if I'll be able to show you one here.
A picture?
Yeah. Talk about something real quick while I'm looking this up.
Livy turned 2. This is Wednesday. Monday was her second birthday.
How is that even possible?
I know, it's pretty crazy. And she's just, some kids, of course, all of my grandkids are this way, but some of them in the world just are, there's cute about everything about them. And even her teeth are cute. I don't know what it is about Livy's teeth, but they're so cute. But instead of a birthday party, they took her to Disney World for about 3 days last week. And Mike has never been because we've never been. And so he was kind of like, he went because Courtney wanted him to, and wasn't too sure about it. But he said, I get it now. Get it. So he said it was just a lot of fun seeing those things through Livy's eyes. But that was her birthday. No party, no presents, just, which I think is pretty neat gift.
Yes, it is. That's a remarkable gift.
Okay. Yeah. Did you find out what you want to show me?
There's too much stuff. I'll have to do it when I have time to pull it up ahead of time. Okay. It'll take too long for me to pull it up. Right. But anyway, is there anything else you want to share before we get into our topic?
Probably, but I can't remember it.
Well, if you do, you can just interrupt.
I probably won't do that.
I know. I just said that to be nice.
Okay.
So we are going to talk about a subject that came straight from the pulpit at Lehman Avenue. I am ripping off Neil's sermon. And I was going to say from Sunday night, but by the time this comes out, it will have been the week before everybody hears it. But he did a lesson called When Things Are Right with God. And I loved it. His text that he used was from Jeremiah 31. So for people listening in, if you want to go back and read that in the context there, but he started out by talking about how, in our relationship, if Neil and I have been, we call it clacking. We're not clicking, we're clacking. We're just not getting along, or we've been arguing or fighting or whatever. And when that's unresolved, it's still unresolved, and we haven't had a chance to work through it. It just feels like everything else in life is just off. It just doesn't feel right. And he was talking about how with our relationship with God, how much more so is that the case, or should be the case, that when things aren't right with God, everything else in life is just off. And that's our most important foundational relationship. So he approached this lesson from when things are right with God. Here are some things we do experience, and we're not going to cover all of them. I have my notes here from Sunday night's lesson. He gave six reasons. And by the way, if you want to listen to the lesson, it's at the Lehman Avenue Church of Christ YouTube channel. You can go listen to that sermon. But I wanted to start with point number 3 in his lesson, where he said, when things are right with God, we are drawn by his love. And the verse there that he used was Jeremiah 31, verse 3, where God says, I have loved you with an everlasting love. And he brought up this question, how often does God say, I love you?
Yeah.
And he, in no time at all, there were like scripture after scripture after scripture where God is saying to us in his word, I love you, I love you, I love you. And, he was talking about how some, kids can grow up in homes where the fathers don't express that to their children. And maybe they give various reasons for that. They grew up in a home where they didn't hear it from their dad, or they just feel a little bit awkward saying it, or whatever the reasons might be. But that it, ultimately it's good for children to hear that from their father. I love you. And so I just loved some of the verses, John 3:16, of course, God so loved. But Ephesians 3:17 through 19, John 13:1, excuse me, 1 Timothy 1:15, Ephesians 2:4 and 6. I mean, it just goes on and on. How many times? And I thought, what a fun personal Bible study that would be. And how could that not encourage you, and lift you up and remind you how much God loves us. And when things are right with God and your relationship with Him is the way it should be, we're drawn by that. We're aware of it. And I feel like that's one of those truths that is so strong and so powerful on its own that we could just stop right there. That's all you need.
Right.
If your
Until next time.
Yeah, when things are right with God, you're drawn by His love.
Yep.
What more do you want?
Yeah. I thought of that 1 John 4:19, we love because He first loved us.
Oh, yeah.
And how that we understand love because He put that love within us and created us with that love, and then just showers us with that love in everything that we see around us in His creation, in the people that love us, and the congregation, the fact that He gave us a brotherhood or sisterhood, however you want to put it. But we love because He first loved us. And then I was thinking too, a couple of other things that, in the year 2020, we wrote through a lot of the Psalms in scripture writing. And this was before John's heart event in November. And all year long, because I was using the ESV that year, or maybe it's New American, I can't remember. But the word for mercy, and I know this is a little different than love, but the word for mercy in whichever translation I was using was loving kindness. And I remember thinking, loving kindness, loving kindness. I mean, it was the longest word. And in other translations, it was mercy. But man, I just felt like God's loving kindness was written on my heart after writing those Psalms that year. It was just impressed upon me. And I love that word. It's His mercy, but it shows His love because He has this love for us. He has mercy for us. And then the one other thing that I thought about this point that brought it to mind when I listened to Neil's lesson on the way to see Mom yesterday. And you know how when someone loves your kids, you can't help but love them.
Yes.
And I don't know what it is, your grandkids, even more than when they love you. I don't know what it is, but when someone loves your kids, you are drawn to them. And just that expression of goodwill and love and sweet, just seeing people be sweet to your kids, you're just drawn to them. And so being the children of God, I think how we just are drawn to Him because of that love that He shows us. So I love that point.
Well, you were talking about the loving kindness. Which Psalm is that? That isn't it in every line? Yeah, His loving kindness endures forever.
Is that 119? I can't remember.
Well, I think that's the one that uses the word. Right.
Yeah, that's right.
I can't remember which one it is, but
I can't either.
And I've been in, classes where somebody will read the first line and then everybody else echoes, His mercy endures forever, which is a lot easier to say than His loving kindness endures forever every time. But, He's the fact that He is, and the inspired psalmist is saying that every single line, every single verse. Well, I love how when we decide what we're going to talk. 136.
Sorry.
Psalm 136.
I think so. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep. That's it. 136.
Psalm 136. When we decide what we're going to chat about, I just start seeing things, and I ran across this quote. It's by A.W. Tozer when I was looking for something to post in the morning. And he said, every man is as close to God as he wants to be. And it's so true because God's love doesn't change. Yeah. It's not, there's no insecurity there or instability or wondering how He feels. His love is steadfast and endures forever. But sometimes we think we don't feel it, maybe, or we feel like God is far away from us. He doesn't really care about us as an individual. He's uninvolved or whatever that might be. And that's why this message struck me so much, because when things are right with God, that's talking about our part. God's already done everything on his part to make things right with us.
Mm-hmm.
And he did that through Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about our part. When we are, when our part of the relationship with God is as it should be, then we are drawn by his love. I think we're more aware of it, just like when people talk about not feeling close to people at church.
Yeah.
We talk about the church family and the love and support we give each other and the sweet fellowship and all of these things. And, sometimes you're just not feeling it. And I think more often than not, that's because there's something off with us
Mm-hmm.
and our relationship with God. And it affects how we deal with his people, how we see his people, how we feel when we're with God's people. But when it's as it should be, we are so much more aware of the blessings of being in God's family and how sweet that fellowship is and how wonderful the bond is and the support that we offer each other. And so that we are drawn by his love. If you are aware of that first thing every morning, like a lot of the psalmists talk about that first thing in the morning, his mercies are new every morning. Imagine the tone that sets for your entire day.
Yeah.
Just that acknowledgement that our creator loves us. How is that going to affect your day? How is that going to change your interactions with people, your mood, how you treat your family, how you behave through service? It can't help but color every aspect of our lives.
Yeah. Knowing that you're loved changes everything. Yeah. And I think that there are many people who, for whatever reason, in their families don't feel that love. Maybe it's a marriage that's struggling right now. And either we're not communicating that love. If we feel it, we're not communicating it. And if we're not, then they're not feeling it. If for whatever reason, if someone is not feeling the love, something needs to be changed in that relationship. It needs to be voiced and shown. But all day long, every day, every second of every day, God shows his love in one way or another. And when you were saying, I feel like if we feel distant from God, like you said, that's not God's doing that. It's us. There's something that's not right with God if we're feeling that. And, maybe it just takes a little bit of analyzing what's going on. Why am I feeling this way? John has a lesson called When God Seems Distant. And I was just trying to think of his main points, and I can't think of them right now because I'm thinking of other things. But he uses the book of Exodus, and when Moses is wanting to be closer to God, and he asks God to show me your glory. And so it's a beautiful thing to be loved by God and to know. And how many times, John has said this before, how many parents out there have written a 66 chapter book expressing their love to their children. And the book of Isaiah is 66 chapters of God showing and saying and explaining his love. And so we have a good God that shows his love. So I don't know if any of that made sense, but
it did.
Different jumbled things.
And it made me think about in a marriage relationship, when things start feeling like they're cooled off or there's distance between us. And so much of that happens unintentionally. It's not like we set out to become distant from each other. We just life. Yeah. Just life happens. Busyness, distractions, obligations, being overwhelmed, stress, all these things are, can just kind of pull us apart if we're not intentional about trying to stay close. And surely the same thing is true in our relationship with God. I don't think any of us set out to say, I just don't feel like being close to God this week. We want that, of course. Yeah. But sometimes we just allow life to distract us or, distort our priorities, cause us to lose our focus, or we get so busy that we're not being intentional in our time spent with him. And next thing you know, it feels like there's this wide chasm between us and he feels distant.
Yeah. And it's never God wanting to feel that way or wanting us to feel that way about him, but rather we've just fallen into it, or we've decided that we're not interested in it. So it's up to us.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so the next one was when things are right with God, we feel genuine joy. And we've talked about that a few times on this podcast, and, things that bring joy or being intentional with that. But this is one of those things that is that, again, another almost natural result of having a close relationship with God. And that's because we have some of the things that Neil brought up in his lesson. We have restoration and peace. And a lot of the things that rob us of joy, some of those things are outside of our control, maybe heartache and sadness and things that we experience in life, or, things that we see in the world. But some things that rob us of joy are our own issues, weaknesses, stumblings. But when things are right with God, we're experiencing that restored relationship and true peace. And as a result, we have genuine joy, not something based on circumstance, something that we have to try and maintain ourselves. That would be exhausting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But having a right relationship with God, that's an outcropping of that true, genuine joy.
I was trying to think of the opposite of joy. What do you feel when you don't have joy from God? Of course, sadness would be one thing, but I think there's more than just sadness. I think it's just a lack of satisfaction or a lack of feeling. Maybe it's just feeling. Because when you don't have joy, I think maybe the opposite is just blah. I mean, what are you living for? What are you looking forward to? What makes you smile? And when things are not right with God, there's guilt. I don't know. I've been in situations in my life when there was a before and an after. And I think that I've mentioned it on here before, but I can't remember. And I always remind myself, not everybody listens to every single episode of this podcast. So I could probably say things more than once, and everyone except my mom, who does listen to every single one. But there's
thanks, Mom.
Yeah, thanks, Mom. But a time in my life when there was sin that I knew about, and I had not corrected it. I had not, it weighed on me so heavily. And talk about being robbed of joy. Like every day there was multiple times a day. I mean, I would just even say every hour there was something that it would remind me of that sin that needed to be exposed. And I don't mean, I just mean that I needed to confess it. I needed to make things right. And so when I did, I made a public confession, even though it was a private sin. I talked to the people that I needed to talk to. I talked to John and explained what had happened. And it was like night and day, going from no peace, no joy, misery, and trying to hide it, because I'm trying to maintain this illusion of things are great and things are fine. And inside my head and my body is just sorrow and sadness and misery and guilt and all those terrible things. And then afterwards, it was just like the sun coming out after a terrible storm, or just knowing that, because every time I thought of God before, it was this instant. I mean, even in my heart, I felt this sinking feeling. And afterwards, it was like everything was lifted. And I don't even know how to explain it. I'm sure there are people that do understand that, but there's nothing like having joy and peace after you've not had it. And it wasn't that God ever moved. He was always in the same place, but I had removed myself in that situation from him. So I would encourage anyone that has that weighing them down and that is not experiencing God's joy to make the hard step, do the hard thing and get rid of that, whatever's between you and God, and make it right.
Yeah, that's really good. And you said before and after, which I actually have in my notes from the sermon. I put Ephesians 2 and I wrote down before and after, which Neil said, but I couldn't remember what he said about it. So I wasn't going to bring it up, but it probably has something to do with what you just said.
What was it? Ephesians 4:2?
No, it was Ephesians 2. That's all I wrote down. Ephesians 2. And then next to that, I put before and after.
Oh, you were dead in the trespasses and sins. And then, yeah. But God, there's that, but God being rich in mercy because of the great love which he loved us, even when we were dead, made us alive together. So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The best before and after right there. Yeah. And you brought up just the whole purpose thing, again, just like being drawn by God's love would have to color your outlook in your day. But when you have a right relationship with God, it's not just the daily grind. Oh, it's another day. It's another getting through. What's the point? That's not our outlook at all when things are right with God. And I think we're our eyes are open to more blessings, even during hardships or heartache, being able to see those and still see the beauty and our purpose, and why we're here. I think all of that brings that genuine joy.
Yeah. And I know you do, look at your grandchildren sometimes and just think to yourself, that is pure joy. I mean, I look at those little faces, every single one of them, and I think they are pure joy to me. And a lot of that is because they are purely innocent. And, they're so young and so sweet. And I know their parents know that they have the times that they're little toots, but they're perfect to me, but just that innocence. And so that makes me think of our innocence before God. And not that there's the difference between the word sinless and blameless, and how when we are right with God, we are blameless. It's not that we haven't done things that we can be blamed for, or we haven't done things that we're not guilty of, but because of what God did for us, we are blameless before him and we are innocent before him. And I think that brings us a pure joy. And I think if anyone is listening and doesn't have that, reach out and let's talk and let's help you find that genuine joy, because there's nothing like it.
Yeah. And like you were saying, so maybe we're not currently caught up in sin, but we might have it in our past. That doesn't have to drag us down and rob us of our joy either.
Right.
Because having a right relationship with God and his mercy and loving kindness means that he has forgotten it. He's thrown it into the depths of the ocean. He's put it behind him, and we can do the same thing. We don't have to let that rob us of that joy.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So we're drawn by his love. We feel genuine joy. The next one is we need to worship. And I loved this one because it's true that we need to worship, but it wasn't so much we should worship. You have a right relationship with God, and so you must worship or you should worship. Really, it was we need to worship. Like we cannot help but worship. And when our relationship with God is as it should be, we want to come before him. Nothing can keep us away from him. We want to come into his presence. We want to be with his people. We need it. And we understand that, it's such an essential, important part of our lives. And so this one was from Jeremiah 31, 6-8. Let us go to Zion, to the Lord our God. And so this was where Neil made a statement at some point during this point where he said, if you're not in the word and you're not petitioning God in prayer, then you are in the process of not being right with God. And I'm sure that was along the lines of, Hebrews 10:25, and what do we allow us to keep us from worshiping God or being with God's people. But that was one of those things where, sometimes you hear something, you kind of go, shh, wait a second. I need to think about this one for a minute. I'm still trying to absorb this one and take it in. And he's gone on to the next point. But that one just, I feel like hit me square between the eyes. And because, there are times when my personal Bible study isn't as it should be. And I let things get in the way with that. And, and I'm talking about private, personal time with God for myself, just me, myself, and I. And or my prayers become just short before meals or before I drift off to sleep, if I even finish the prayer before I fall asleep. And sometimes you just think back to, when was the last time I really prioritized quiet and uninterrupted time with God? Just me and him. And that's again one of those things where you don't intend to neglect it or be half-hearted about it. It can just happen. And next thing you know, you kind of look back and go, when was the last time I did this? And so I thought that was really good. And it made me want to be a little bit more introspective about, I may think my relationship with God is where it should be, but am I full in myself? And I'm not talking about, am I safe? Am I not safe? Am I going to heaven? I'm not talking about not being secure in our salvation, but it's just so easy to let all the distractions crowd in, and even good things crowd in so much that we haven't treasured, guarded that special, quiet, unrushed time with God.
Yeah. I hesitate to say this, but we talk about being real. I feel like my problem is on kind of the other end of the spectrum. Like, I have personal Bible time or spend time doing personal study. And, prayer time is someday I want us to talk about, have maybe more than one podcast when we talk about prayer, because anyway, that's beside the point. Just that's like you said, sometimes we fall asleep, sometimes we don't prioritize it, but later we can talk about that later. But my struggle is more going sometimes and having that worship time with other people. And I don't know what it is, but sometimes, this is probably, this may be too much, but things are right with God, with me, privately and publicly. I don't mean that. I don't know how to say this, but sometimes you're looking at me like, what is she about to say?
No.
Sometimes when you go and your heart isn't just in it, being around people for whatever reason, and I don't mean this about anybody here in Dripping Springs or in Denver, anywhere. It's just, if sometimes that's just a struggle for me, that I would rather have it privately than public worship. But I love seeing the people. I love the singing, the praying, but maybe I don't know. And when you brought this up, I thought, this is you loved this point, and listening to Neil's lesson yesterday and him saying you can't wait to come and worship him with others. And I sometimes don't. I don't know how to explain it. It's just, I don't know. And it's kind of troubling me now when I started listening yesterday and thinking about, why is it that I don't want to sometimes? And maybe it's just when the struggles that people are going through, and that it's continuing there at worship. And, maybe there's issues in the church, maybe for whatever reason. And I probably just opened up a big Pandora's box that I shouldn't, but that's a struggle for me sometimes. And that's just, I'll just maybe just shut up now and stop talking, because I don't know how to answer it.
Well, you've been really busy.
Maybe, yeah.
You've been, well, here lately, going from one event to the next with people all the time. And maybe you're just craving a little bit of rest and quiet, and
maybe so.
Maybe and some alone time. And
I don't know. Maybe, and I'm making this a bigger deal than it is, because it's not, I don't dread it, and I don't like actively not want to go, but I would rather be at home in quiet time with worship, even though it's not the same and it's not what God's calling me to do, worship with his people. But maybe some of it is because we're in a different place so many times and I don't have the continuity of the same people. And maybe that's it, because, and the more I think about it, maybe it is because when we've talked about how we weren't really fully plugged in here or fully plugged in there. And when you don't fully plug in to people and their love, and you love them and you know what's going on in their life from day to day. And we just haven't had that lately. So yeah, that's what it is. I'm sure that's what it is.
I bet that's what it is.
I do know this. I love the Lord. I worship him. I honor him. So this is not something that's going to be heavy on my heart, but it just made me think, what is it that maybe it's my introvert side? I don't know, but I do love worshiping with his people, but sometimes I'd rather just be by myself with my Bible open, and maybe it's just easier, and that's bad too.
Yeah, you are an introvert for sure.
Yeah.
Well, now I don't want to say what I was going to say because you're going to think I'm aiming it at you.
No, I won't. I won't. I promise. I shouldn't have even gone there.
No, I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. We all understand. We really do. Nobody's judging you.
I feel so much better now. Now I'm going to overthink myself all night long.
No, please don't. Okay. But I was trying to think back. I heard a lesson at Bear Valley years ago, and it was the perfect visual. And it may have been Michael Haidt. I don't even know who said it, but and it may not have even been a lesson. It could have been a communion talk. Who knows? But anyway, the idea was we have this idea that we come to worship with our empty buckets and expect to get them filled. Mm-hmm. And while that's true, that, our hearts are filled after coming into the presence of God and singing and, being strengthened by the word and all of these things. But that's not the primary purpose of worship. And whoever it was said that we really should be coming with our full buckets. And that, again, we always keep going back to this word intention, but that kind of preparation and intention for worship shows this desire to go to worship, that we need to worship because we're taking our full buckets. We're taking all of our praise and all of our thanksgiving and all of our that's the same word, all of our love for God and his people and, coming into his holy presence and communion. And we're preparing ourselves mentally and our hearts for worship, and we're bringing our full buckets to worship. And, it just so happens that coming into worship doesn't deplete us. When we do that, we still leave with, filled and fulfilled. But to me, that was so helpful because I think sometimes, maybe it's that whole entertain me, the singing was too slow, the sermon was too long, all that so-and-so ticked me off, all these things that we get caught up in. That's not what worship is all about. But we kind of come with that. Like, I'm just going to expect to be, to get when I come to worship, instead of thinking about what we're offering and bringing to the Lord. And I think maybe when we remember that and we pray about that and we're more intentional about that, and we have that right relationship with God and we understand that desire and longing to worship, I think it'll help the whole experience when we struggle. I know what you're talking about. I mean, there are times when I'm just not feeling it. And a lot of that has to do with peopling, or getting ready or all the things that go along with it. I think we all probably experience that from time to time, but, if we remember what it's really all about, it's not really all about how my hair looks, my dress looks,
really
how the song leading went, it's not really about those things.
Yeah.
It's about our heart offering all that we are in thankfulness to God, and encouraging his people and being with his people. But his point was, when we have a relationship with God, we need to worship him, and nothing's going to keep us away from that. No, unexpected company or other, things we'd rather be doing or excuses that we come up with, nothing's going to keep us away from coming into his presence to worship him.
Yeah. Yep. Good points.
Okay. The last one was, when things are right with God, we hope for the future. Jeremiah 31:17 and following. And this one, he was talking about this whole idea of the things that we go through here that can be so hard, disappointments, sadness in our families. Is that not the hardest thing? You mentioned the greatest joy comes from seeing our grandchildren. I would say some of the hardest hardships come from when you see your children hurting.
Yeah.
And so, he brought up that song, Does Jesus Care? And we know that he does. When things are right with God, we know that he does. And not only that, but all of this is nothing compared to the glory that's to come. And we know that. And we know that not only do we have amidst the hardship, amidst, is that a word? Even while experiencing the hard, amidst, even while experiencing the hardships here, we know that God is still with us. We still have his love and care and blessings and mercy and all those things, but also what's to come. We don't have to be scared about what tomorrow holds. We don't have to be worried and anxious about those types of things because our future is secure. And one of the things that he said is true peace is built on what God tells us. And we're taking those promises in through his word, and trusting that and believing that means that we don't have to be anxious about anything that lies ahead here. And definitely we know what we have to look forward to there in eternity.
I got to spend this morning with Alice. She, my friend that I've mentioned several times, the one who's been in treatment, getting ready to have a bone marrow transplant, which, by the way, they found 4 potential donors, which is pretty wonderful. Unusual to find that many. But she, so she went back home to Lubbock and then came back this week for some follow-up appointments. And so she's here. She came, Lubbock is North Texas, Houston is South. So she's coming back through Austin to go back home. So she came over this morning, and she has said this before, but just being able to sit down and talk with her. And she was just talking about peace. And she said, I don't know what it is. And I said, I understand. I've, in a similar situation, this is her life that she's talking about. And I'm looking back on the situation with John, and she was just saying, I'm just not worried about this. I'm going to beat it. She keeps saying that. And I believe she's going to beat this stuff that's going on in her body. But she said, something else is going to kill me. But regardless, she said, I am completely fine. And it's so hard to explain that to people that don't have this relationship with God. In Philippians 4, that peace that passes understanding, it says in black and white there that it's not something you can really understand why you have it, but you have it when you are right with God. And to know that no matter what happens in this life, whether it's disease or whether it's an accident or whatever happens to you, it's going to be okay. Now, I think different situations when it's you, or in the case of John, knowing that I am going to be okay regardless of what happens to you, and what happens to you, you're going to be okay. Paul says to go is great, to stay is more needful. But thinking about people in other situations who have sick children and bad things going on, I get that, that's a little bit of a different situation. You can still have peace knowing that the outcome is going to be okay in the end, but you still have these feelings in between. So, I think it's important to remind, for someone who's going through an illness with their child or something, for them, I don't want anyone to think if you are struggling with that you don't have peace or right relationship with God. Right. But in a situation like this, to know that God's going to make things all right in the end, and that there's just peace that comes from that. So I'm grateful for that. We do have hope for the future.
I'm thankful for examples like the one you just mentioned. She's going through, what we would think of as this huge ordeal. I mean, it's just huge, but everything's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. Spirit, does she even realize what an encouraging example that is for everybody who sees her going through it? Mm-hmm. And, just vocalizing her trust in God and the outcome. Yeah. It's so encouraging. It makes me think that if I were in a similar situation, I pray that I will be like her. Mm-hmm. And knowing that she's doing it shows it can be done. Yeah. I hope she knows that she is such a wonderful influence on so many people. I will
make sure she does know that. There was something else that I thought about. The song, Is Thy Heart Right with God? Mm-hmm. Your topic made me think of that. So I went to look at the lyrics, and of course it's written in King James type English. So I was thinking, what if we put this in more words that we would use? And it doesn't have the same poetic ring, but it still has some thoughts that, to think about. Have your affections been nailed to the cross? I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just some of the phrases. Have your affections been nailed to the cross? In other words, have I died to self, and do I live for Jesus? That's what makes our heart right with God. Do you count all things for Jesus but loss? That is in just like that in the song. But what are my priorities? Is my priority all about God, or is it about self? Do you have control over yourself and over sin? So self-control is a part of being right with God. Does Jesus rule in your heart? I can't remember what line, but it's in King James English. Does Jesus rule in your heart? Are all your thoughts and actions under Jesus' control? Does he always live in you? And are you now walking in the light? So I just kind of went through the song and looked at the way it was written and how we might say it to each other today. And I thought those are all good things to think about, to know if our heart is right with God.
That is perfect. That is the perfect conclusion, unless there's something else that you wanted to share.
No, I think I've overshared.
No, you have not. So the points that we didn't cover that he mentioned was we enjoy fellowship with him and we experience his grace. So again, if you want to go back and listen, those were great points also. But we had to pick and choose because we don't want to drone on and on forever, Carla.
We don't ever do that.
We don't ever do that. Okay, so just to wrap things up here, when things are right with God, we have all of these wonderful blessings that we experience now and things to look forward to. And to clarify, again, we're not saying that when things are right with God, nothing wrong happens in your life. Mm-hmm. We're not saying that you would always feel exactly how you're supposed to. We're all human and we're all doing our best. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But these things are true. These are things that we can find in the Word that we enjoy when our relationship is right with God, which is the most important relationship that we have. Do you have something good for you to share?
I do.
What you got?
It's a lesson from Equipped, and every women's session, and that was what I went to the most when we were there. Every women's session was amazing, wonderful. But I want to share Catherine Baker's lesson, mm-hmm. and it was called "The Woman Caught in Adultery." And I just, some people have a way of saying things, and she had just beautiful points and very matter of fact and very practical. And I thought that it would be good for whoever, and we're not caught in adultery, but she talked about what would happen on the worst day of your life, and that it had to have been probably one of the worst days of her life. that woman caught in adultery, and just how we can deal with that. And anyway, I just thought it would be good for people to go back and listen to that. And when you do listen to Catherine's, then you can also see the link to all the other lessons that went on in Equip too. So that was just what I chose to be my something good this week.
That's good. She always does a great job.
She does.
I like the way she thinks. Yeah, all the lessons, the videos are up on the Lehman Avenue page from Equipped.
And it's a video, not an audio, a video. So do you have them audio too?
I don't think so.
I've only seen videos on YouTube.
Yeah, I think it's just video.
Okay.
All right. So mine is a little tip.
Okay.
And it is, do you ever buy spinach like in those big plastic clear tubs or whatever? Well, we usually pick ours up at, Sam's or Costco or something. It's those great big containers. And I saw this, I was watching a cooking video one time, and this lady just pulled hers straight out of the freezer in that tub. You know how it usually has that like peel back top, and you pull out what you want, and then you close it back up and stick it in your refrigerator. Well, to keep it from going bad before you can go through all that spinach, she just sticks her straight in the freezer. She doesn't put it in anything else. She just closes it back up and sticks it in the freezer. And so I tried that, and it is amazing.
You can still use it for a salad?
No, you can't. But we
That's
usually
what we use it the most for.
Well, we do too, but we can't go through all of it, just the two of us. And so I use what I want fresh, because I like it fresh. I like it in omelets. I like it on top of my pizza. But then before it has a chance to go bad, I'll just stick it in the deep freeze, because we also use it in like a lot of soups or beans or things like that. I'll just pull out
anything that it needs to be wilted,
like
or
pasta. You know how when you do like a pasta sausage creamy thing with spinach, you can just open that thing up, pull it all out. They kind of freeze individually. Just grab out as much as you need and throw it in the pot, and it is perfect. And so that's what I do now, and it's been the best thing, because I don't have to worry about any of it going bad or trying to eat it all before it goes bad, and it works. Like, it doesn't stick together. It's just perfect. So that's my little tip.
That's a good tip. John eats tons of spinach. I mean, he just, that's his thing. He loves spinach and salads all the time. That's pretty much all I buy for him for salad greens is spinach. But I like mine with the stems off. So when I make a spinach salad, it takes time. I don't like the stems. That's that weird texture thing. I know.
Even on baby spinach?
If it's little tiny, it doesn't bother me, but a lot of baby spinach still has, a long stem on it, and I don't like that. So
it's a lot of times we just, but we still love you.
Thank you.
A lot of times we just saute it in a skillet with olive oil, and garlic, and maybe squeeze a little lemon on it or something. And it's always funny to me how it feels like you're just piling tons of spinach in the pan, and then it shrinks down to itty bitty dinky spinach.
Yeah.
So that frozen spinach works for that too, because you can just pull it out and throw it in the skillet.
Yeah. I love fresh spinach sauteed with a little butter and garlic. It's good stuff. But yeah, you're right. I could probably use that whole 1 pound container and make one little small skillet. It just cooks down.
I did that even recently, because I felt like I just put so much spinach in there, and I don't overcook it because I like it just slightly, kind of slightly wilted, and it still just went. When Neil came home, it was like we each had a teeny tiny little scoop of spinach in our rice bowl. I was like, truly, that was a ton of spinach.
Yeah, started out. There's probably a lesson in there some way.
All right. Well, this was an enjoyable topic. I think I'm glad you shared what you shared, and I know all of our listeners are too, and that's why we all love you.
Thanks.
And we also love our listeners. Thank you so much for being with us and listening to us chat. We appreciate it. We never take it for granted. We pray for you each week, and we hope that you've been encouraged. We love hearing from you. Come check us out on our Facebook page, Looking Up with Kathy and Carla. Share your thoughts with us. And Carla, until next time,
keep looking up.
Love you.